it's not like Nicaragua was this crazy place where violence was taking place and drug violence and gangs and poverty. There was the biggest gains in the economy. The Nicaraguan economy, along with Bolivia at that time as well, was making some of the biggest strides in GDP growth and lifting millions of people out of poverty. So the context of that 2018 coup was one of socialist construction and development. What happens is that in 2018 in April, you have the IMF and the World Bank pushing Ortega and the Sandinistas to implement neoliberal economic reforms, especially targeting the elderly, targeting lifting the age of retirement. So it makes it harder for people to retire earlier on. Daniel says, I don't want to do that. And so instead, I'm going to raise some of the taxes on the wealthy, the private sector in the country. There's this one industry group in particular called COSEP, which is like the council of the quote unquote private sector, the entrepreneurs. So they basically, at that moment in 2018 in April, they began doing a social media blitz campaign. All these bot accounts that had been dormant for years, that were just random Nicaragua culture pages, like things Nicaraguans say or travel in Nicaragua, night over day, immediately began posting stuff like Daniel is a dictator, have the U.S. invade our country, SOS Nicaragua. So it had been a very coordinated campaign for many years during some of the most economically stable and prosperous times in Nicaragua. The private sector said that Ortega and the Sandinistas were cracking down on freedom and business. And so they launched these protests. The majority of the foot soldiers were these petty bourgeois college kids from the private schools in Nicaragua. If anybody, and it's literally what there's this book, I think it's by, I'm not sure if it's Parenti, I think it's Parenti, Inventing Reality. And that's literally what they're doing, but on a whole nother level. Like this is like Inventing Reality, when Parenti wrote it, was like, writing headlines a certain way, writing a certain paragraph a certain way. They're literally creating AI bots and all this other crap that I don't even know how it works. But they're literally creating this. And now with the Metaverse, that's the crazy part about it, is that hundreds of Sandinista accounts were deleted the same day that Zuckerberg announced the Metaverse. So now they're going to create this whole new alternate reality where they can dominate all the rules and the spaces and information. So Inventing Reality is going to take a whole new meaning in the next few years.
Those bot accounts, was that promoted by CLG strategies or CLS strategies? Because they did similar things. They're the ones behind it in Bolivia and in Venezuela.
Most definitely. That's CLG strategies and several other intelligence agencies based out of Miami. There's actually a whole cybersecurity in quotations industry in Miami of all these exiles from Latin American countries, from Cuba, from Bolivia, from Nicaragua, from Venezuela. And their job is to create these fake bot accounts to make it seem like there's this mass campaign of opposition to whatever government is in place. They did this in Bolivia against Evo Morales. All these fake bot accounts with like 2 followers all of a sudden were tweeting out these pictures that were not even from Bolivia. Same thing was happening in Nicaragua. They were posting photos in Nicaragua of police and National Guard beating up and detaining people in Honduras and saying that this was happening in Nicaragua and accusing the Sandinista government of this. And of course, so many people on the quote unquote left fell for this. Also, the same thing they were doing, using, weaponizing identity reductionism or identity politics and saying that the Sandinista government was massacring Miskitu indigenous peoples on the coast. And that's part of the sanctions that are going on now with the Nacer, the beef ban from Nicaragua, because Nicaragua exports a lot of beef because it's GMO-free, organic. Everything in Nicaragua is fresh and no GMOs or Monsanto's allowed there. So that there's a big demand for the beef and fruits and vegetables from there. And they're saying that this beef is produced in areas where there's genocide taking place, allegedly. And I went to that area. I've interviewed people. They couldn't be happier. They're being promoted by the Sandinista government. And it's just complete nonsense. So yeah, CLG strategies. And the crazy part about that is that not only are they propping up fake Twitter bots and accounts and saying that they're real opposition people, they're also censoring real Sandinista people, real Sandinista youth activists who are real human beings. I met them. I had a stream a few days ago with my compañero Camilo, who is a communist in Nicaragua, who does a lot of great blogs, Red Revolución and Barricada and all these Sandinista outlets. And they were saying that he's a bot, that he doesn't exist, that he's not a real person. And just the complete inversion. So again, it's something that is so dark. I mean, like, if we wanted to even bring this to a biblical level or whatever, like, this is like complete evil. Like, it's completely inverting reality. It's calling you the evil one when you're trying to do good, and the person who's evil is calling themselves good. So it's something that's really insane.
No, not to compare like what we've been through to the struggle of the revolutionaries, but during SOS Cuba, obviously we were one of the first accounts to come out and say this is State Department manufactured. This is not, coming from the mass of the people of Cuba. And my TikTok account with, a couple 100,000 followers was shut down for the entirety of the SOS Cuba protests, as these bot accounts, or as it's now been proven that these bot accounts created in Miami were spreading all this anti-Cuba propaganda, anti-government propaganda. They were shutting down the loudest and largest accounts, telling the truth about the protest. And it's infuriating. I had, someone accused me of throwing a tantrum about it, but I was enraged, because as you said, it's a complete inversion of reality, and it's an inversion of reality which allows the U.S. empire to do these horrific things and hold this country in a state of poverty or try and keep them from developing.
Yeah, it's such a display of power to simultaneously fund bots and pass them off as real activists against whatever leftist government, and then at the same time be suspending journalists and activists accounts. I think it was Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. I was reading about them. It's the power to create reality, but it feels like just a real flex of power. Like, look at what we can do and you won't catch us. It's quite sinister, but we have to just keep fighting. And we did get our TikTok back eventually, and maybe these people will, once they can no longer assist in the elections, they may get their accounts back as well until the next one rolls around. But it's an old tactic that I think is just widening as the technological net widens and they exert more and more control. I think your gesture to the metaverse makes a lot of sense. We will see as that develops.